they never saw it coming. Not the arguments, not the distance, not the way love started turning into tension. It wasn't like she wanted to push them away. In fact, every month, she tried harder. To explain, to stay calm, to not ruin it again. But there was something no one else could see. A cycle. Invisible. Relentless. And powerful enough to destroy even the most loving relationships. They thought she was overreacting. They said she was too emotional. They rolled their eyes when she cried over something small. And that's when it started. The slow, silent collapse of connection. Because how do you hold on to someone who doesn't believe your pain is real? At first, she thought it was her fault, her instability, her brokenness. But deep inside, there was a rhythm. A monthly rhythm that shifted her body, her brain, her heart. She became different. Not by choice, but by biology. And while the world kept expecting her to be consistent, her nervous system was screaming. The part no one saw was the lead-up. The tension building in her chest days before. The irritability that made every sound too loud. The tears that sat behind her eyes like a flood. Just waiting for the wrong word to open the gates. She didn't want to yell. She didn't want to cry. She didn't want to snap at the person she loved most. But when your brain is on fire, when your serotonin plummets, when your hormones hijack your reality, sometimes love takes a backseat to survival. And that's what they didn't understand. It wasn't about them. It wasn't about the dishes or the text message or the forgotten detail. It was about the storm inside her. Every month, like clockwork, it came. And every month, it took a little more. A little more patience. A little more closeness. A little more belief that she was worth loving through it. The worst part? The shame after. Once the rage passed, once the fog cleared, once she saw their hurt face, the guilt was unbearable. She'd apologize, try to explain, swear it wouldn't happen again. But deep down, she knew it would. Because no one was helping her track the real culprit, her cycle. And so it became a pattern. Rupture, repair, rupture, repair, rupture, and then, sometimes, no repair at all. They left. Not because they didn't care, but because they didn't know what they were fighting. And how do you fight something invisible? She started hiding it, pretending she was fine, minimizing her pain. But it always found a way out. Through silence, or sarcasm, or sudden explosions. Until one day, she realized. It wasn't just ruining her relationships. It was ruining her. Her sense of worth. Her sense of safety. Her sense of self. Because when the people you love don't believe you're suffering, you start questioning if you even deserve to be loved. And that's the deepest wound of PMDD. Not the mood swings. Not the tears. Not the exhaustion. But the loneliness. The feeling that no one sees what you're carrying. So you must be crazy. But she's not crazy. She's cycling through hell. In a world that only validates pain you can measure. And emotional pain, especially hormonal pain, has no caste, no crutches, no physical wound. So, it gets dismissed. And so do the women who live it. This is why she stopped talking. Why she began to withdraw. Why she became cold or unavailable or too intense. Not because she didn't love, but because she was tired of defending her right to feel. This is what destroys relationships. Not the rage itself, but the disbelief that comes after. Because nothing hurts more than being told your pain is exaggerated. When you've spent your whole life trying to hide how much it hurts. What she needed wasn't judgment. It was understanding. Not the kind that nods politely and says, "Yeah, I get it." Hormones. But the kind that actually listens. That asks questions like, When does it start? What do you feel in your body? What helps you feel safe when it gets bad? Instead, what she got were rolled eyes, minimized feelings, emotional distance. They started tiptoeing around her during that time of the month, like she was a ticking bomb, not a person trying desperately to hold herself together. And the worst part? She started believing she was the problem, started internalizing every accusation, started hiding the spiral, started performing fine to keep them around. That's how PMDD fractures you. First from others, then from yourself. She became a master of masking, smiling while sinking, functioning while fracturing, apologizing while bleeding emotionally inside. Because it was easier to be chill than to be too much, easier to fake okay than to risk abandonment again. She started Googling things like, why do I hate my partner before my period? Why do I want to leave everything once a month? Am I emotionally unstable or is it hormonal? She found forums, Reddit threads, quiet confessions, and a terrifying truth emerged. Thousands of women were experiencing the exact same thing, and no one was talking about it publicly. Because to say, I feel violent sadness right before my period, still gets you labeled as hysterical. Because to say, I feel like destroying everything I love once a month, sounds like fiction. But it's not. It's biology misfiring, neurochemistry collapsing, a cocktail of hormonal chaos no one taught us to math. And while everyone talks about PMS, the bloating, the cramps, the cravings, no one talks about the rage, the despair, the identity erosion. Because it's harder to see, and it's even harder to believe when you're on the outside. That relationships don't end because of hormones. They end because no one knew how to hold what was happening. That's the real tragedy. If someone had said, hey, it sounds like you might have PMDD. Let's track your cycle and moods together. Let's build a plan to protect your relationship during your spiral window. Maybe things wouldn't have shattered. But no one did. So she tried to carry it alone. She tried to love while unraveling, tried to soothe others while burning, tried to be low maintenance while drowning in high stakes emotions. And eventually, either she left, or they did, because there comes a point where your body keeps score. And when you betray your truth long enough, you start resenting everyone who demands your silence. She wasn't mad at them. She was mad at the world for not warning her. Mad that no doctor had asked about her emotional symptoms. Mad that no therapist had tracked her cycle. Mad that no school had taught her about progesterone crashes and estrogen withdrawal and serotonin depletion. Instead, she was told, women are just like that sometimes. Maybe you need to calm down. Don't let your feelings ruin your relationship. So she shut up, swallowed it, softened herself into invisibility, until the cycle screamed louder, until her body said no more. That's when she cracked. That's when the rupture became impossible to ignore. That's when she realized, this isn't about them anymore. This is about me, finally understanding what I've been surviving. And it was never just her personality. It was PMDD, and it was time to name it. Not as an excuse, but as a map back to compassion. Compassion for herself, for her nervous system, for her body that's been cycling through trauma with no one watching. And maybe it wasn't too late to rebuild what was broken. Rebuilding after PMDD isn't about fixing yourself. It's about learning your cycle, like someone learning to love a wild ocean. It moves, it shifts, it has tides, and if you fight it, you drown. But if you understand it, if you study its rhythm, if you prepare for its waves, you start to reclaim your power. And that's the part no one teaches us. That we can partner with our own biology. That we can forecast the storm and soften its blow. that we can build relationships that bend with the cycle, instead of breaking from it. But first, you have to stop pretending you're not affected. That's what she finally did. She opened her calendar. She marked the days she felt like herself, and the days she didn't. She circled the days she wanted to leave everyone, and the days she wanted to be held. And slowly, a pattern emerged. She wasn't moody, she was patterned. She wasn't unstable, she was cycling. And once she saw that, the shame lifted. Because how can you blame yourself for something you were never taught to see? She brought this pattern to therapy, to her partner, to her journal. She stopped saying, "I'm sorry I'm like this," and started saying, "This is the part of the month where I need more gentleness." At first, it was awkward. She'd flinch when asking for space. She'd brace herself for eye rolls or invalidation. But something changed. When she led with honesty, the people who truly loved her leaned in, not out. They started learning her language. They made space on day 23. They offered warmth instead of logic. They stopped asking her to just breathe when her chest was full of fire. And suddenly, the relationship didn't feel like a battlefield anymore. It felt like a dance, one that required attunement, one that had pauses, one that honored both the gentle days and the brutal ones. She began designing her life around the cycle, not as a limitation, but as an intelligent map. She scheduled harder conversations outside of the emotional crash zone. She built spiral rituals for her dark days. Soft music, loose clothes, less screens, more silence. She stopped explaining her entire soul to people who only saw symptoms. And she gave herself permission to be loved in every state. Not just the bright, helpful, calm version, but the version who couldn't stop crying because her hormones were lying to her brain. That's real healing. Not forcing regulation when you're dysregulated, but creating conditions where dysregulation doesn't destroy everything you love. And no, this didn't make her perfect. She still snapped sometimes, still fell into spirals, still woke up wondering why she couldn't just be normal. But now, she had a map, and a map makes all the difference when you're lost. She learned how to text, "Today is day 25, I need space, not distance." She learned how to say, "Please don't take this personally, I am drowning in my own chemicals right now." She learned how to forgive herself faster, and how to ask for repair without shame. Because she wasn't broken. She was a woman with a cycle, living in a world that expects emotional flatlines. A world that never taught us that it's possible to be both powerful and fragile, especially in the same week. But she was learning. And every time she didn't collapse a relationship during her spiral, she was building something sacred. Emotional safety. The kind of safety where love can survive even the storms we can't control. She never wanted pity. She wanted understanding. She wanted language. She wanted someone, anyone, to say, "I see you, and I believe you." That's all it would have taken. One person validating the storm, instead of treating her like she was the storm. Because what most people don't know is this: women with PMDD aren't dramatic. They're survivors. Survivors of monthly emotional collapse. Survivors of misdiagnosis, minimization, mockery. Survivors of their own brains turning against them on a schedule. But when society laughs it off, when even doctors say, "Maybe you're just sensitive," these women go underground. Emotionally, socially, relationally. And something quiet dies. It's not just the relationships that suffer. It's dreams, careers, creativity, trust. She stopped applying for promotions, stopped planning trips, stopped making long-term commitments, Why? Because what if her spiral hits at the worst time? What if she cancels last minute again? What if she ruins it again? So she played small, lived quietly, avoided taking up space. All because no one told her. This wasn't her fault. But what if someone had? What if, instead of judging her inconsistency, they helped her build around her cycles? What if partners were taught that intimacy isn't just about sex and cuddles, but about attuning to someone's internal calendar? What if workplaces honored emotional fluctuation, the same way they respect physical illness? What if healing wasn't about fixing the woman, but about fixing the culture that refuses to adapt? She started asking those questions, and the answers cracked something open, because this wasn't just her story. This was systemic, a global silence, around the emotional cost of hormonal dysregulation. So she stopped apologizing for needing more rest. Stopped apologizing for canceling plans on day 27. Stopped apologizing for not being a productivity robot in a female body. She started educating others. Started sharing her chart. Started saying, "This is when I thrive. This is when I spiral. Here's how we can move together through both." Some people left. They didn't want the complexity. They preferred the mask. But the ones who stayed, they witnessed her, held her, and, most importantly, adapted. That changed everything. Because healing from PMDD isn't just about supplements and tracking apps. It's about being met, emotionally, relationally, environmentally. She began building a life where she didn't have to hide anymore. A life where her intensity wasn't too much, it was sacred. A life where she could fall apart and still be worthy of love. And in that safety, the spiral softened. Not because the hormones stopped, but because the shame did. Shame is what turns pain into poison. Shame is what breaks relationships. Shame is what convinces you to keep dying quietly every month. Instead of screaming, "This is real, and I deserve help." But once that shame cracked, something else came through. Power. Not the loud, performative kind, but the steady, rooted kind. That says, "I know myself now. I trust my rhythm. And I refuse to abandon myself ever again." This is not the end of her story. It's the beginning. Because now, she's not afraid of her cycle anymore. She respects it. She works with it. She even teaches others about it. What used to be her curse became her compass. She can feel the early signs now, not with fear, but with clarity. She knows when to soften her schedule, knows when to protect her heart, knows when to warn those she loves. I'm heading into the underworld. I'll be back soon. And they listen. Because she taught them how. She stopped asking to be understood, and started demanding it with love. And slowly, her world reoriented. People didn't just believe her anymore. They prepared for her spiral with her. That changed everything. Because when someone stands beside you in your darkness, instead of trying to drag you out of it, you heal differently. You trust differently. And you begin to believe. Maybe you were never too much. Maybe the world just wasn't taught to hold women who feel this deeply. But now she is held. By knowledge, by boundaries, by self-compassion. And in that space, she's become someone new. Not a woman trying to control her cycle, but a woman leading herself through it with grace. She no longer feels broken. She feels ancient. Witch-like, womb-wise. Because what if PMD wasn't just a disorder, but a misunderstood gift? A brutal, burning initiation into radical self-awareness. What if those who cycle this deeply are meant to hold the keys to emotional intelligence? But first, they must survive the fire? She did. And now she walks with the kind of power You only earn by staying. When every part of you wanted to run. That's what love looks like now. Not perfect. Not linear. But honest. She no longer hides when she spirals. She prepares. She warns. She trusts the rupture. Because now she knows how to repair. And that's her message to every woman watching. You are not too emotional. You are not unstable. You are not broken. You are cycling. And cycling is not chaos. It's wisdom. Track it. Name it. Protect it. And for the love of your future self, stop apologizing for what no one ever taught you to understand. The next time the storm comes, and it will, don't fight it alone. Call it by name. Speak it out loud. And remind yourself, you were never meant to be linear. You are lunar. You are wild. You are waves. And no one blames the ocean for its tide. Now go. And become the woman who rides her rhythm, instead of drowning in it. Because your cycle doesn't make you hard to love. It makes you real. And that's your power. Easy as